to this week's episode of Beyond the Broomstick, the podcast that opens up the opportunities and possibilities that spirituality can bring to you in your everyday life whilst removing some of the woo-woo that we see on social media these days. Welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Matilda. I am a professional psychic medium and spiritual advisor based here in Australia with over 20 years experience. And today's episode is actually all about me. It's not, but we'll just pretend. I get asked all the time, how did you find out about your ability? How did you learn what you do? Is there any cool stories? Well, I am going to talk about that today. How I honed my ability, how I worked on it, how I discovered it, a little bit about my journey. I did talk about it in my first ever episode, but I thought it would be fun to go into it with a little bit more depth today. I'm also going to be talking about the predictions that I have made on social media. I always go into those with more depth on the podcast because I can only give you snapshots. I am monitored. We are watched, and I cannot go into too much detail. Not hiding anything from anyone, not being vague. Just need you to come over here to hear it in a bit more detail. I'm also going to be talking about what I see for this weekend, especially in the United States of America. It feels history-making with some of the things that I have been shown. So we're going to do all that today. I need to apologise about the lateness of this episode. It's been a tough couple of days in the Matilda household. I know I talked about the Buff last week and we were unsure what was happening with him. He had a procedure yesterday. He was very, very ill Monday night, and Tuesday. He was already booked in at the vet for a procedure to have a look at his tummy, see what was going on. And Monday was a public holiday and he declined very, very quickly. He went into what they call Addison's shock. Although he doesn't have Addison's disease, it's because we had to take him off the prednisolone to show the inflammation. And his body did not react very well to that. So I got him to the vet on Tuesday morning and he had an endoscopy and they discovered that he has a tumour in his pyloric region in his stomach. We do not know what it is just yet. We have to wait for the biopsies to come back. It could take a couple of weeks, but the vet was pretty sure that it was malignant and it's what's been causing all of his issues. He is not well and we know that where it is inoperable and it would only buy a couple of months anyway. So we're making him comfortable. And he is being even more spoilt than he usually is. So I want to thank everyone for their lovely, kind messages and notes. I have read them all. I haven't responded to them all because there are so many. But give your puppies a huge cuddle today because, he's only 5. And on my desk, whilst I'm recording this, I have a little box with the ashes of my first dog. His name was Dinsdale and he was a basset hound. And he also passed just after his 6th birthday with stomach lymphoma. So I don't know. It's all very sad. But yeah, love your puppies because they deserve the world and the world is a better place because of them. So yeah, I had to take an extra I'm not getting a lot of sleep at the moment. Things are a bit haywire and because Buff is up a lot during the night with nausea and not feeling well and it has just been a whole thing. So I'm a bit late today. my ex-husband, who loves Buff just as much as I do, came and actually worked from here this afternoon so that I could get some things done. And he's taken Buffy off home with him for a couple of nights, and then he'll come back to me, just so that we all get some love and get to love on him. Okay, well, we're going to talk about mediumship, psychics, all that exciting stuff, because I know a lot of people were originally drawn to me because of my predictions on social media. And a lot of people don't actually know that I am actually a medium and have been working as a medium for many years. It's actually a part of my job. I love being able to do connecting people that have lost their loved ones through me is just, I'm so blessed to be able to do it. But I didn't know it was a thing growing up. As I said, my journey is probably very convoluted, as it should be. I am of the belief that you can be good at what you do. You can be a good psychic medium. But the more you live, the more you develop, the more you work on your conversations with spirit, the more you're able to deliver in-depth information. And that's just something I stand by. I was born this way. I come from a family of witches. I will say that. My father used to call us witches. Okay, so my father is Irish Catholic, doesn't believe in the afterlife, doesn't believe in what I do, snake oil salesman, that sort of thing. But my mother's family are actually Romany gypsies. And my mum is first generation. So her name is actually listed as a Romany birth. And her and my grandmother and my aunties were all able to say things and they would happen. There is actually members of my family that work as in different ways in the UK, not in Australia, because I am actually from the UK. I grew up there. Palm reader, she's quite well known. There's a couple of others on the South Coast. But I didn't really know about it. It wasn't part of my upbringing. I first experienced spirit, and it was one of the few times I've actually seen spirit in the 3D. Often I see people, they give me an essence of who they are in my third eye. They've got to be a very strong presence for me to see them visibly. And I saw my first one when I was 7 or 8 years old. I was at my grandmother's house. So my grandmother, middle of the New Forest in the UK, if you know that area, shout out to it. It's the most beautiful place in the world. And I miss it every single day. Grandmother had a house, just an average 2 up, 2 down house. And we didn't live near there, so it was sort of like we would go there for summer holidays. And in the spare room, we were all put to bed on a summer's evening. There was myself, my brothers, and a couple of my cousins were obviously in the same room at the same time. Family were downstairs, outside, partying, gas bagging, whatever they were doing. And I remember opening my eyes and seeing this man, and I wasn't scared. He was wearing a uniform, but it was a very heavy, fleecy type uniform, like a furry military uniform. Do you know the heavy army jackets, like the old ones? And he had a cap on, an army cap on. And he raised his hand, his finger to his lips in the way to tell me to shush. So I didn't say anything. And I wasn't scared. I didn't think about it. But he was just looking at us.
in our various makeshift beds in this tiny room in this house. And I opened my eyes and he was gone. And then I saw him fleetingly for a couple of seconds later. And I never thought anything about it. And the next day I said to my mum, "Who was that man?" And she said, "Well, what man?" I said, "The man in the green uniform." And she said, "No, there was no man. You must have been dreaming." So I assumed I had been dreaming. Now, it didn't happen often after that. I was a very, very anxious child. So my thought now, looking back on it, I probably had my brain filled with things that were making me nervous or things that I was worried about that, general girls do. But as I got a little bit older, I started to think things and they would happen. I remember talking to a friend about being scared to fly. I wasn't going anywhere. I don't even remember being on a plane when I was younger. I know I was because I travelled with my parents when I was very, very young. But I remember saying to my friend, I wouldn't want to get on a plane. I wouldn't want to go somewhere. And I think it was about her holiday because she used to travel to Italy a lot with her family. And the next thing we know, there was a plane crash. And it was very publicised. I can't even remember what one it was, but I think it was one in Birmingham or around that area where a British Airways plane hit a motorway or something. And she was like, "Oh my God, did you know that was going to happen? Should I get on my plane?" And often things that I would think or say out loud would happen. But I was so used to it because it happened to my mum. And it happened to my grandma and it happened to my aunties, which is why my father used to call my aunties and my mum the witches of the forest, hence the New Forest. So I found it was just normal for me. I remember being in a whole school assembly when I was 12 or 13 and hundreds of children in this assembly. And we'd all entered the same prize. And I knew that my name was going to be called up. I knew I had won. I've had another instance where I bought a CD that there was a very famous pop star. I'm not going to tell you who it is because you'll all laugh at me now. Was visiting a Melbourne shopping centre. And I bought a CD to get a ticket and the winner was going to win. I made my way to the front with all knowledge that I was going to win, and I did. So many things that now I have an explanation for. But being psychic, having an intuition and being able to be a medium is not enough. You must know yourself and train. And none of that I really knew. I just knew I had this ability. So fast forward a little bit, bearing in mind I am 53 now. I did not start working as a psychic medium until I was in my early 30s. By that time, I had 2 children, I had lived a life, I had done all sorts of things and worked and was starting to work on my healing because we all have trauma that we all need to heal from. So during my 30s, I began this fascination with no understanding of my own ability in finding psychics and mediums, just out of pure intrigue. It's a bit of a fun thing to do. And I remember going to a friend's house and she used to have this psychic medium that used to come to the house and do tarot readings. So we'd all go off into a room, have a tarot reading and then go back and chat, just like a girls' night. So we did that. And the first thing that this woman said to me was, "I need to give you a crystal ball. You are more psychic than me and you need to be working with spirit." And I'm like, I've got no idea what you do, love. No idea. I was 30-something, early 30s. Got no idea what you're talking about. The days before the internet. And I went on a little bit of an exploration journey, and it was more about getting the readings to understand what I was feeling, what I was doing. And it wasn't until I met my wonderful mentor, Aileen, who again said to me, I need to be working with spirit. She was the second person or the third person to say it to me. You need to be working with spirit. And I've got to go back a little bit because there's some of these psychics that I visited that I would walk away and go, well, that's a load of bullshit. They didn't tell me anything that I didn't already know. None of that. None of it made sense. So I would connect with some, not connect with some. But Aileen, bless her soul, was a medium. And she gave me the advice that I needed to be working with spirit. She talked to me about my own family. She brought through my mother after she passed. There was, she's an amazing, amazing mentor. And I then decided to work very closely with her to develop my ability. Because having the ability, understanding it, and developing it are all very different things. The development is so important because I watch many people that claim to be a psychic medium, and they give information that is vague at best. They give yes-no answers based on their own intuition, not listening to their guides. And if we don't develop our own communication with our guides, put mediumship aside, the communication with our guides is one of the most important relationships, communications that we can have that will take us to the next level. And I soon started to really understand how my guides communicated with me through my memories, through my own emotions, through understanding myself so that I can then understand the messages that I'm getting. It took me 3 to 4 years of continual development before I was comfortable doing just a psychic reading, not a mediumship reading for anyone. Because the relationship that I've built with my guides and my intuition and the way that I get information is so inbuilt in my memory bank that it's second nature to me now. And without that knowing myself and working on some of my healing, I couldn't remove my ego, remove my understanding, remove my expectations from any of the information I was delivering. And that's the most important thing, because sometimes we do have to do some truth telling. And sometimes that isn't received very well. When I had spent some time doing this, and I would only work with local people, sometimes friends, people that referred to me. So once I had really gotten to understand that part of everything, I chose to dive a little bit deeper into mediumship, which, to be fair, once I'd flipped the switch and opened up to receiving and realized it wasn't as scary as I thought, and that even though I was fearful of this constant stream of external consciousness from other people, that I had more control over it than I thought. I loved doing it. It took a lot of practice to reiterate the information. And again, it's like spirit, your loved ones are always going to turn up for you. They don't turn up for me. It's not like I wake up in the morning and I am surrounded by 200 people wanting me to pass messages on. For me, I have always had that on-off button, which, to be fair, because I didn't know or understand how to tune in and tune down, I didn't want to do mediumship because I was really scared of having a constant stream of information. Once I actually sat, and I sat actually at the first ever mediumship reading I did, which still fascinates me to this day, is I had done a meditation with Aileen, and we had talked about some stuff, and I had sort of been able to see who I was bringing through for her, but I didn't feel like it was a reading. I felt like there was still something missing from it. So I actually was talking to a friend about this, and she said, well, practice on me. And I didn't know her mum and dad. They'd passed a long time ago. And I said, okay, well, we set up a time, we set up a day, and I sat down, and the first thing I said to her was, who's Alfie? And she goes, oh my God, that's my grandfather. I said, okay. And then I was understanding that Alfie was bringing other people forward. It wasn't just about the grandfather, and to understand the different dynamics, and that just the first person that you bring through isn't the only person you're going to bring through in a reading, and to be able to feel comfortable without stretching and being able to say, I'd seen bad mediums work. I'd seen the bad ones that say, oh, I've got your grandmother here and your grandmother loves you. Everyone knows your grandmother loves you. I wanted to give the evidence. I wanted to give the information. And you've got to remember that when I was under development, there was no internet. So there was no one to watch on YouTube. There was probably the start of the internet, but nothing like we have today, where I can watch another medium work and think, okay, I like that. I'll adopt that, the way they're delivering. For me, development is always about the way you deliver, the way that you use your ethics, the way that you present yourself, and the evidence you give. Mediumship is natural, which is why I can't teach it. I just struggle to teach it. But that's my journey then took off from there, because people started hearing what I do. And I found people were booking me from different countries, and I didn't have a booking site, and I would just get a telephone call saying, my mum really wants to make a booking with you. And it all became really complicated. And I found it very overwhelming. So I ended up taking a couple of year break from doing any readings at all until 2012. I went back not full time. I was reading after my full-time job. I was doing 2 or 3 readings a couple of times a week. Or on a Saturday, I've never done a psychic fair. It would just be somebody would send me an email and want to book. And I would say, yep, if you're in Melbourne, this is where I am, or we'll do it over the phone. And often I had people coming to my apartment in Melbourne for a reading on a Saturday. And that all sort of took off. And then word of mouth got really big. And I found I would wake up in the morning and have 20 emails for a booking. And this has gone back 2017. So very shortly after that, I decided to go full time and set myself up a web page and a booking site, and I haven't looked back. But I do want to urge people that if you are looking and you have this ability, everyone has the psychic ability. I believe that mediums are born and psychics are developed. That is my belief. But I know that some people will say otherwise. If you can do it, do it. If you can't, you can't. Work on the evidence. Work on the way that you communicate with spirit. Test them. You know, if you're sat there and someone comes through, ask them to show you something specific. Dates. I get capital letters for names. If I don't get names, they'll give me the capital letter. That sort of thing is really important. I'm going to do a shout out to my latest Patreons now. And then I'll come back and tell you a little bit about some of the deciphering of messages that I get. And we'll talk also about this weekend. So, my latest Patreon members, I need to give you all a massive big thank you. If you don't know about my Patreon, pop along to the link in the show notes. Patreon is a great community. We have some amazingly funny chats on there. This weekend we had a live chat, and we also did our coffee morning, which was wonderful. The recording of the coffee morning that was last weekend is up in the paid Patreon section. People asked some great questions about spirituality, about current affairs, asked my take on some things. It's amazing. Pop along, check out the Patreon. But I want to thank everyone. You are supporting this podcast, as well as getting all the juicy gossip, deets, information that you need. And yeah, Patreon rocks. The community is great and really supporting people. So thank you to Agni, Nicole, Mayra, Venu, Cindy, Mickey, who has joined for 12 months, Leah, Izzy, Emily, Dawn, Sarah, Sophia, Melissa, Karen, who's joined for 12 months, Darcy, who's joined for 12 months, Lashanda, Deb, Katrina, Charlotte, Julie Allen, Des, Angela, Ronnie, Sammy, Taylor, Joanne, Sarah, Celizastro, Mary, Claire, and Barbara. You guys rock. I have just introduced a new tier, and this tier is the Metaphysical Mavens. It is for those wanting to grow their spiritual business. We're going to have an open circle once a month. We're going to have a separate community for those working in this industry to ask. We're going to have different courses on things like ethics. It also gives you one free either large mediumship group or course, the $50 level a year after a couple of months. And it's going to be a great community for us to build. So check out the new Metaphysical Mavens, because if you want to develop your ability, you want to be around your peers, it's going to give you a great opportunity to do that. But yeah, Patreon is rocking, and you support this podcast so that you don't have to listen to some random ads. So how I started to develop my ability to receive information has always fascinated people. It is a case of really getting to know your guides. Now, I always say give them a name, because we don't often get names with them. One of mine I do call Alice, because that was my grandmother, and I believe that she is I know she is, I don't know why I say I believe, she's one of my guides. And she passed away many, many, many years ago she's my great-grandmother when my grandfather was a little boy. But our guides know us better than anyone else. We have this ability to lean in to receive information. We just have to learn and set our expectations. Our expectations and how we get this information is always so personal. When I get asked, I received this, what do you think it means? I don't know, because to you it could mean something completely different to me. Keeping a journal is so important. Now, I'm not talking about I had a crap day, I want to eat a tuna sandwich sort of journal. I'm talking about, I felt this way and I got this image in my head, and writing it down and seeing what plays out from that. The important thing to understand is that we are never going to get all the answers because we must learn. When you are so attached to the outcome and receiving red light, green light, you are going to flounder because your guides want you to develop. They want you to learn. They want you to be hungry for knowledge. And when we look to them for the answers rather than the guidance, we learn the meaning. We lose the meaning of it. Oh, getting my words muddled. For me, I am given my memory bank. If I am doing a reading for someone else and they are making me feel a certain way, if my guides are giving me information about a certain time in my life or an image from a movie that I've seen, that helps me lean into that person. If I am being given an emotion or a feeling or an image of a divide between a family member or a loved one or an argument, that helps me because I go on my past. And if it's not on my past, they're giving me things I've watched, things I've read, things I've learned. Often names that I get during mediumship readings are because they're giving me the image of somebody I know with that name or somebody that I know that does a certain job or an image from, say, Harry. They're going to give me Harry Potter. All of that is very relevant. They're going to give me places of the world that I know. And if I don't get it exact, it's because it's very close to that place. For everyone out there wanting to develop this, start your journal. Start writing things down. I have an intuition journal available on Patreon, but you don't need that. You can use it in a notebook. But sitting and learning how they make you feel, what they show you, is your first step in that direction. And that's how I have learnt. And it has taken me many, many, many years to understand it. Be patient with yourself, but also be committed, because being committed is going to get you the results. Stop trying to be perfection, because perfectionism stops progress. And whoever it is that I spoke to, and I'm so sorry, I should have remembered your name, but you gave me the name of a podcast. We joked about it. Could you just put it in the comments? Because I can't remember the name you gave me. I wanted to do a whole podcast on perfectionism and how it stands in people's way. All right, up next, I'm going to talk about the predictions that I have made on social media recently and in a little bit more depth. I'm not going to give you exacts, but I'll give you what they've given me. Before I jump in and talk about the predictions that I've made on social media, I know that it is human nature to attach an outcome to a prediction, whether it's a personal prediction or a world prediction. But I really urge you not to become attached to the way you want things to play out in your head. Time and time again, it has proved that timing is very loose when it comes to spiritual predictions. And I am seeing many of my predictions that I made last year play out now with a different set of circumstances. I was warning about 2025 early last year that this was going to be a shit show of a year. And a lot of that is playing out despite the new administration in the United States. I believe that the current nasty, horrible, difficult set of circumstances are there for a reason, and all will be explained. I have been highlighting the August period of time for a long time, as well as this month, which I'll get into a little bit later. But when I give you a prediction, look, you talk away on my posts because it gets me traction. I don't have any skin in the game financially with TikTok. I never do. I don't think any psychic medium should, because those that are unethical will make posts that are unethical. I make the posts that I make with limited information because I'm aware that my audience on social media is diverse and different people are going to be affected by different people. But if you are one of the fuckers that come on and say, it's all negative, everything is in the eye of the reader, whether you see something as negative or positive. I will talk about the predictions, but I'm going to talk about this first. I am sick to my back fucking teeth of people looking at every video, every story, every movie, every book, and attaching a negative element to it. Oh, that's a romance, but oh my God, he has such red flags. Oh, story like Tarzan of the Jungle. It's such a racist story. Can we look through the eyes of love instead of the eyes of judgment? Your life will be a lot better for it. When you attach your own unhealed thought pattern to something that could be beautiful, informative, educational, you are missing out. I'm not talking about things that are purposefully racist or purposefully negative. I'm talking about old school stuff. I'm talking about things that you fail to see the joy in. That's on you. It's not on me. It's not on the writer. It's on you. Art is always in the eye of the beholder, no matter what form that art form is. If you look at something with a negative mindset, with your own hate, with your own unhealed mind, you are going to see negative no matter what it is. The social media blows my tiny little mind with the nastiness that people, the projection. I can give or take it. I like to point out the odd arsehole. I like to tell them they're an arsehole. I like to make them aware that they are nasty. It's my calling. But on other people's things, the trauma dumping. Some poor woman was talking about, there was a video about she's an Australian, or she lives in Australia. Lovely lady. She's so entertaining. She's quite funny. She's obviously worked really hard. She's in her 30s and she lives a very comfortable lifestyle, but she's worked for it, right? She broke up with somebody she thought she was going to marry, and she was telling the story. Just, you don't know what heartbreak is. My ex won't let me see my kids. Her pain does not negate yours, so stop negating hers with your own story. Sad, sad people. Anyway, let's talk about some of the predictions that I have made that are on my TikTok. Banking crisis. A lot of people felt that was talking about banks as in, do I have to take my money out of it? Banks are in trouble. You will see banks go under. You will see investment bankers go under. Banks are in trouble. The institutions, what you do with your money is what you do with your money. But there are banks that are going to go under. There is going to be put it this way, if you work in the banking industry, I would be getting your resume up and tidied in the next week. Mutiny in the US Congress. I feel this is going to happen very soon. Whether, and I haven't seen everything. It feels like there is violence on the floor. There are people throwing things. Maybe somebody storms Congress whilst they're meeting, but there is mutiny. It feels like people are getting up and walking out. The shipping lane blocked an accident was an interesting one because I've made several shipping predictions. One of them was involving a Navy, and I believe there was a Navy incident involving either a Russian ship or a Russian ship fired and hit a freight ship. That was a couple of days ago. That was a separate prediction. I saw an accident on a ship. That did happen in the UK. And I said it was a large-sized ship. I liken it either to a freighter or a Navy vessel. Blocked and global shipping lanes. I feel like the Suez Canal, Panama Canal, that sort of shipping lane could be the North Sea, but it's different to the accident that actually happened. That was a separate prediction. High-profile drug overdose. This is world news. It is not just American news. It is world news. High-profile celebrity. I'm talking royalty or politician internationally known or a royal pop star, royalty pop star, that sort of level. Devastating news. I saw it in international news. That's why I can say that it is an international story. The public violence globally. Come back to me on Monday. I'm going to talk about this weekend because I see a lot of it happening this weekend. I'm going to talk about that at the end. Major hacking chaos, travel chaos. There has already been major hacking this week. There is going to be more. I feel like it's either passports, security, airport. That's the sort of thing I feel. It's major. When I make predictions, it is world news or at least hits some form of world stage. Announcement from the Danish royal family. I feel like it is in connection with Queen Margrethe. Taylor Swift announces film project. Now, I was told that this was already out, that she'd already announced a film project. My take on that is there's a new one. This is something you guys don't know about. I know you Swifties know everything. Don't think you know this one. Espionage uncovered. There is communications from Russia. There is communications about Russia. I believe the web will be deep. I believe it will unseat politicians. I believe it is world news that is going to shock. Could involve some royalty too. The other one I'm going to talk about is the international floods are going to increase globally. March and April are going to see significant flooding. The floods I saw in Brisbane happened this weekend, just gone. I see flooding in areas of Canada. I see flooding, and I don't know what areas, I'm sorry. I am just seeing the Canada flag. The UK will experience flash flooding. I see just outside of London to the north. And India and Pakistan as well as areas of Europe. The Spanish floods I saw also happened about a week ago. So a lot of those that I have seen in areas I pinpointed have happened. So if you are in a flood-prone area, take precautions now. Movement with the military in Europe. I do feel like military is entering Poland. I do think there will be talks about the British military going into Europe. But I also want to say this. I have predicted and believe that Donald Trump will start action to remove military from military bases in Europe. He may call them back. He may send them somewhere. But there will be movement in those areas. Italy, weather. Italy's really weird because I do see areas flooding, but I also see harsh fires. Volcanic action, don't know which one. I know that Etna went off last year. I predicted that, but I think it may be Vesuvius starts having a bit of a rumble. I do want to say that they're going to be earthquake prone this year. Italy feels like movement of buildings, like ancient ones, like the Tower of Pisa, may lean a little bit more again. But that's the in-depth that I have seen. I know a lot of people attach their own outcome to things. Remember, my predictions stand until they come in. I'm just going to tell you that. Remind yourself of that. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean to say it's not going to. And I always stand by my predictions. This weekend, however, I have talked about 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th of March for a very long time. The violence, the aggravation, it feels scary. If you are in Washington, D.C., please be careful. There will be provocateurs at the rally trying to egg you on. There are many people on social media predicting that martial law will come into play on the 20th of April. I believe that it will happen a lot sooner than that, and he will call it because he does not like to hear the people's voices. I feel that April is bringing in a whole change of things, and it's not martial law. It could... Going to eat my words now. Timing is loose. It always is. But the historic things feel that they're happening between now and the end of April. This weekend is set to incite violence. It is there to incite people to react and behave badly. I would not be surprised if someone tries to either break into the Capitol building, a historic building, could be the White House, I'm not sure. I had this conversation with Florrie Rivers this afternoon because I said the Capitol, she said the White House. I said, look, it just may be that I'm shown something that's already happened and we have to go. I have to, it's a building that is going to be stormed. There's professional rioters going. And I also want to say that instructions to use violence against rioters will be issued. Whether that's the police or the military, I am not sure. But I do see a lot of people in uniform. So veterans attending, there would be uniforms. Sorry, my bad. But please be careful. I do not think that this is only happening in the United States. I would also warn against anybody in Victoria from taking part in any walks, any marches this weekend as well. Historic things happening over the weekend. I do think we'll see the loss of an international leader this weekend through probably natural causes, but I'm going to put a pause on that. We may even see some attempts on people's lives. Hold on to that. But if you are in the DC, the New York, major capital city area, please take care and be aware of the energy and what they have in mind. They're trying to egg you on. They're trying to get you to behave badly. And many people want to go, know your surroundings, know how to get away if you need to. Take care, everyone. That's about it for me this week. I am sorry this is late. Life is lifing for me at the moment. Pina, when I said 2025 was going to be a shit show, I didn't realize that it was going to attack me personally. It has been a shit show and we are only in March and it is fucking me without the lube. So you guys are the ones that keep me going. Thank you for that. I hope this episode has helped. I will be back next week with more wise words from Matilda. But until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Remember, community is key. Love you all.